Flight attendants, seats for takeoff. Before takeoff checklist.
Brake temperature.
Checked.
Brake fans.
Off.
Engine mode selector.
Checked normal.
TCAS.
TARA, tilt above.
Exterior lights.
Set on.
Sliding tables.
Stowed.
Stowed. Checklist complete.
Spool the throttles up to 60%, make sure they're even, and then set toga détente. Push the stick forward until about 80 to 100 knots.
Take off. Man, toga and SRS.
Check. Power set. knots.
Checked.
Speed 1. Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Navigation.
Check.
At rotate speed, gently pull back on the stick 2 to 3 degrees per second and follow the flight director up to 15 or 17 degrees.
Gears up,
Flaps
lights
1.
off. Speed check, flaps 1.
Autopilot on. Flaps 0.
Speed check, flaps 0.
Here in the PFD, I'm being told to change to climb détente, and I struggled a bit with my throttle that I have.
Climb thrust. And the after takeoff checklist.
Engine mode selector.
Checked normal.
Spoilers.
Disarmed.
Flaps.
Checked retracted.
Landing gear.
Gear up, lights off.
Exterior lights.
Set off.
Tax.
Both on.
Anti-ice.
Off.
TCAS.
Checked.
Altimeter.
Standard.
Checklist complete.
And I finally get the throttle into the correct position and the warning stops.
Passing 10,000 feet.
Lights off.
Off.
Now if I have clearance, I can set the altimeter to my cruise height flight level 310. There's nothing much to do now but monitor the PFD and the ND and the FMC and just make sure that we're in stable flight and everything's going according to plan. Fast forward to the in waypoint and you can see just past in is my top of climb. Just before top of descent, I'm going to change the altimeter to 4,000 feet, which is my glide scope intercept height.
Initiating descent.
FMA check.
Radar tilt.
Set below.
The FMC is telling us to initiate descent, so I'll go to the left CDU hit the performance button and the approach page and fill in the required data. This consists of QNH, temperature on the ground, the wind direction and speed, the transition altitude, and our decision height or minimums, which today is 210 baro. This will give me my V approach speed and my V landing speed. As we come up to Bordy and start the Bordy 6C star, you can see it's quite a complicated star. Flies us out to sea and then back in to join on to the localizer. I'm going to let the FMC fly speed, height and lateral navigation. Here we are coming up to Mikru, the second last waypoint in the SID, and the FMC is flying the aircraft and I'm just checking on height, speed and direction. As we come up to the nearest transition, I make a mistake and hit the approach button too early, and the aircraft, instead of following the transition, heads straight towards the ILS. The way to get out of this one is to use heading select and vector yourself back onto the nearest transition and switch off the approach button. No harm done, back on track. We need to hit the ILS at less than 90 degrees and ideally at about 45 degrees or less, and this transition does that for us.
Approach checklist.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Sliding tables.
Stowed.
Stowed. Cabin signs.
Checked.
Nav accuracy.
Checked.
Bearer reference.
Checked. 1012.
1012. Checked. Checklist
Flaps
complete.
1.
Speed check. Flaps 1.
Flight attendants, prepare for landing.
Let's have a look at the ILS.
Traffic.
We need to arrive at the final approach fix at 4,000 feet with flaps 1 in place and at the right speed. We then hope to lock onto the glide scope, and round about 5 nautical miles to go we'll do flaps 2 and gear down, and then as we close in on the airport with 3 or so nautical miles to go, we'll go to flaps 3 and then soon after that full flaps. This time I do hit the approach button at the correct time, and hopefully as we approach finals we will turn onto the glide scope and lock into the localizer.
Localizer alive. Glide slope alive. Localizer captured.
We are still 15 nautical miles from the runway, so we've got plenty of time to stabilize the aircraft. You can see that the glide scope is still blue, which means it's armed, but we haven't actually captured the glide scope yet. According to the ILS map, the final approach point is 12.2 DME from the runway.
Glide slope captured.
$2,500.
We are still 7.5 DME from the runway. I'm expecting to go flaps 2 and gear down somewhere just over 5 nautical miles to go. At decision height, which is 210 feet above the runway, I'll switch off the autopilot and I will flare 10 feet above the runway and manually put throttles to idle.
Speed check, flaps 2.
Gear down.
Gear down.
Traffic,
Flaps
traffic.
3.
Speed check, flaps 3.
1,000.
Speed check, flaps full.
Landing checklist.
04 left.
Landing gear.
Down and locked, 3 greens.
Ground spoilers.
Checked and armed.
Auto brakes.
Medium.
Exterior lights.
On.
Go around altitude.
Checked.
500.
Landing memo.
Checked, no blue.
Checklist complete.
400. 300. Minimum 200.
Continue. Autopilot off.
100. 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, retard 10, 5.
Ground spoilers. Seventy knots. APU on.
After landing checklist.
Exterior lights.
Checked.
Ground spoilers.
Set off.
Engine mode selector.
Checked normal.
Flaps.
Checked retracted.
TCAS.
Checked standby.
Brake temperature.
Checked.
APU.
On.
Checklist complete.
Now, as we taxi to the parking bay, We'll shut the aircraft down, switch off the engines, do the parking checklist. The passengers will disembark and we'll be in the turnaround state, ready to board the next load of passengers, cargo and fuel.
And the parking checklist.
Parking brake and chocks.
Chocks are set. Parking brakes released.
Engine master.
Both off.
Seatbelt signs.
Set off.
Beacon lights.
Set off.
Exterior lights.
Set off.
Anti-ice.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Set off.
Checklist complete.
So that's it. We're now in the turnaround stage, waiting for our next load of passengers and our next leg of our flight. Thanks for watching and goodbye.